Hey there, Prob-Stats students. This is Mr. Mitchell. We're going to take a look at section 4.1, which is looking at scatter plots, bivariate data. We're looking at two lists of data. So in our example here, we have a botany experiment where they're growing watermelons. So they're measuring the depth of the roots in inches, and then they're weighing the watermelons from that plant to the nearest pound. So these are in inches, this is in pounds. So a long way to do this, we're going to make a scatter plot. You can definitely do it by hand. To do it by hand, take a look at the next slide here. You would make a scale and you'd look at your numbers. So your smallest number is 7. Your biggest number is 28. So you need to get numbers from 7 through 28 on your x-axis. Notice it's going up by 5s, and they're also labeled here. Then we need to take a look at what our y values would be, which would be the weight of the watermelon. So our minimum there is 7 as well, but then our max is a 20. So when I look here, I got a 7, and then I guess it was bigger than 20. I missed a number, huh? So there's your scatter plot, and then we will draw a line that we think fits the data. In a future section, we will actually find that line mathematically. Right now, we're just drawing it to see where it looks like it fits the best. So we're going to take a look at our calculator here in a minute to make this. You can make it by hand. I'm not going to force you to make scatter plots by hand unless you don't have technology. Then, yes, you have to make them by hand. Keep in mind, you can download the calculator onto your laptop. So you don't have to do it by hand if you have downloaded that calculator or if you have your own. So here's your list of data. And we're going to put these into the calculator. So if you recall, we've already learned how to load lists of data. So you go to Stat, you go to Edit, and then we're going to type these numbers in. So I put mine into L5 and L6. So my L5 is the root depth in inches. You can see I have 15 numbers. And then the mean weight of the watermelons from that plant are in L6. So there's my data. The L4 and L2 don't mean anything for this problem, they're for something else. So there's my list of data. So I'm going to make a scatter plot. Now, so I close out, and then I go do second stat plot. And I go into one of the plots, I make sure it's turned on, and I'm going to tell it scatter plot. So that's the first option of graphs. I'm going to select that. And then you go to X list. And I said that I had mine in L5 as my X value. My Y list is L6. The marks, you can change that to whatever you want. And the color doesn't matter either. And then we're going to graph that. And there's a good chance we're not going to see anything right now, which is okay. Remember, how do we see stuff when we want to change our window? We can go to Zoom Stat or Zoom Fit. We'll try Zoom Stat first, and there it is. There is your scatter plot, which looks very similar to the picture on our PowerPoint, except for the line. So it kind of looks very similar. Okay. So if you were asked to reproduce this, you would just need to take a screenshot of your calculator on your computer, or you can take a picture of it and submit it that way. Just make sure that they are clear pictures. They can't be all fuzzy and blurry. Otherwise, I'm going to say you have to draw it by hand. But at this point, with all of our technology, that's one thing that we don't have to do. You can also make a scatter plot using Word or Excel, just like we've made just like we made bar graphs and histograms and circle graphs. All that stuff is in the same menu option up above. You can make scatter plots out of the data. So we will do that when we get to our next part of the project. But for right now, you can just use your calculator to do it if you don't want to draw it by hand. Okay, so going back to our notes here. So we got our scatter plot, and just a couple other things that we just need to be aware of. we're looking to see whether there's a linear correlation. So this has no linear correlation. This looks like a parabola, okay, from algebra. This has no linear correlation because the points are everywhere. Where do you draw the line? Do you draw it here? Do you draw it here? You don't know where to draw it, so that's why it has no linear correlation. Okay. Some other examples. This has a moderate. Notice the points are fairly close to the line. This is a positive correlation because it's going in a positive direction. It's a positive slope of the line. Okay. As you go to the right, it goes up. This is a moderate correlation as well. The points are fairly close to the line. As you go to the right, though, it goes down. So this is a negative correlation. Perfect correlation doesn't happen in stats. It really doesn't. This is algebra. This is Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 when you learned how to graph slope and y-intercept and all that stuff. When every point is on the line, it's perfect correlation. Again, this is a positive slope. This is a negative slope. That really doesn't happen in our class. It could, but it's not very likely. It happens all the time in algebra because you are dealing with perfect correlation in those courses. So for right now, we're just concentrating on making our scatter plots and then deciding whether it's a positive, negative correlation, and then how good is it? Is it moderate? Is it perfect? Is it really good? Maybe not quite perfect. Is it still positive but not very good? So it just depends on, so let's say we had, so that's not great, but if I draw a line, it's coming through there, so it's okay. So this would definitely be a positive, but it's probably a weak correlation. Okay, so notice these points seem to be a lot closer to the line. These points, you got some points that are getting further away. It's still a positive. You wouldn't draw a negative correlation for this, so that's why it's still positive. And then the other, going back to this example, I can just draw 4 points and make it no correlation. I can have one here, one here, one here, and one here. Where do I draw the line? This has no correlation. Okay, so try to draw through here. Well, then you have those 2 points. Why can't you draw through here? So this is no correlation. So we try to base it on a direction, so positive or negative, and then how strong it is in terms of when we decide if it's good, bad, or moderate. Okay? If you have questions, let me know.